The greatest story ever told. But why a story? People keep saying the Bible is the greatest story ever told. And I keep asking, why story? Why not the greatest truth ever revealed? Why not the greatest collection of facts ever given to humanity? Why a story? Think about that. We don't call mathematics a story. We don't call gravity a story. We don't call chemistry a story. We call those facts. But when it comes to scripture, suddenly it is a story. Why? Because stories do something facts do not do. Stories move emotions. Stories shape cultures. Stories teach morals. Stories give people meaning. But stories also raise questions. Are they literal history? Symbolic lessons? Poetry? Myth? Metaphor? Or a mixture of all these? That matters. Because facts are tested. Stories are interpreted. Facts ask, did it happen? Stories ask, what does it mean? Very different questions. And maybe this is where many people miss something important. Calling the Bible a story may reveal more than people intend. Maybe it admits that religion often works through narrative, not evidence. Through symbols, not proof. Through meaning, not demonstration. That is not an insult. That is observation. Look at the stories. A serpent speaks. A sea parts. The sun stands still. A man lives inside a fish. The dead rise. Now pause. A rational mind asks, should this be read as history? Or as powerful symbolic stories humans use to think about fear, justice, suffering, hope and survival? That is not disrespect. That is inquiry. And inquiry is not blasphemy. It is thinking. Humans have always told sacred stories. Before the Bible there were epics, myths, creation stories, flood stories. Every civilization used them. Why? Because stories help humans explain a mysterious world. Thunder became gods. Floods became judgment. Suffering became test. Chaos became demons. Story was often the first philosophy, the first science, the first psychology. And maybe scripture belongs partly in that tradition. That is a serious question. But many believers become uncomfortable when you ask it. Because once you call something story, another question appears. Is it revelation? Or literature? Divine history? Or sacred mythology? And people panic at the word myth. But myth does not simply mean false. It can mean a symbolic story carrying cultural meaning. That matters. Because if Adam is mythic, that changes how we read sin. If Noah is mythic, that changes how we read judgment. If Job is poetic, that changes how we read suffering. These are not small questions. They shake entire belief systems. And maybe that is why they are often avoided. But ask yourself honestly. If a book is really the final perfect communication from a God, why present so much of it in parables, symbols, visions, contradictions, poetry, legends and disputed histories? Why not clear facts? Why ambiguity? Why interpretation? Why thousands of denominations arguing over what the story means? Why should ultimate truth look so much like narrative? That is a serious question. And here is where I go further. Maybe religion survives not because its stories are proven facts, but because humans need stories. Stories about purpose. Stories about justice. Stories about death not having the final word. Stories about cosmic meaning. That may explain religion more than miracle claims do. And if that is true, then maybe the real wonder is not the Bible. Maybe the wonder is the human mind. Our ability to create stories so powerful they become civilizations. So powerful they become identities. So powerful people will die for them. Fight for them. Rule with them. Kill for them. Be comforted by them. be controlled by them. All true story. Think about that. Maybe the greatest story ever told is not just praise. Maybe it is unintentionally one of the most honest descriptions ever given. Because perhaps religion is, among many things, humanity telling stories about ultimate questions. And maybe the question we should ask is not, is the Bible the greatest story ever told? But, when does a story become belief? When does belief become dogma? And when does dogma stop us from asking whether the story is true? That is where the real conversation begins. Follow the Rational Heart podcast for more.